Peter, great to see you.
Morning, Chris. Good to see you.
FairTipShare, obviously, we launched literally just before the pandemic last year, which is a shame in terms of timing. But it's an issue that's just as important as we come out, isn't it, and start rebuilding as it was before.
I think it is. I think right here and now, it's very tempting for people just to focus on the immediate issues, reopening, staffing our business, dealing with the hangover of the last 12 months. But I think all of the reasons that FairTipShare was being launched before the pandemic still remain just as valid now. I think that there is a real need to increase understanding, and that's both within hospitality, but also for people outside who actually, when all is said and done, are the consumers who are asked to pay this money in the first place. I think that the problem has been that most people who do things fairly and properly don't tend to talk about it and don't tend to shout about it. It's not necessarily a newsworthy story either. And so there's a real risk that people look at the few bad examples that get highlighted and tar everyone with the same brush. And I think what FairTipShare was all about was being able to say, firstly, to staff and potential staff, we are a good employer. We do things properly. Come and work for us, and this will be a positive part of your employment. And to say to our consumers, you can be confident and comfortable that if you choose to leave extra money, that will go to the team who have delivered your experience and will be dealt with in a way which has a level of transparency and a level of fairness that you should be comfortable with.
And actually, that's probably more important now, because as people begin to reopen, everyone's struggling to find good people again, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I mean, there's many reasons why the staffing crisis has returned with a vengeance. And I think the key thing for any business is to differentiate yourself from your competitors when you're trying to recruit. And I think that this is one way of businesses being able to say, come and work for us. Here is how we do things. We're really confident in this. And this should be something that attracts you to come and work for us as opposed to somebody else.
From the conversation you're having at the moment, how do you feel operators are responding generally?
I think that, again, the immediate temptation is just to throw money at the problem. Okay, well, we'll pay you an extra £1 an hour, £5,000 a year. We'll give you a signing on bonus, whatever. In the long term, that's not sustainable. Firstly, because businesses by and large won't be able to afford to. Most businesses have a debt hangover from the last year, so it's not going to be affordable. Secondly, that will get us into a spiral of wage inflation, which ultimately won't benefit anybody. And thirdly, it will ultimately mean that we are all trying to poach off everybody else rather than all working together as a sector to increase the overall value of the sector and the number of people who work in the sector. If we don't have these conversations, we're not going to tempt in the people who are currently going to work in other industries or other sectors of the economy who could potentially come and offer something to hospitality instead.
It's really interesting. Now, this has been a passion for you for a long period of time. Why?
I think it's because when it's done properly and when it works, it is to everybody's mutual benefit. It helps the business. It keeps their costs down. It helps team members. It delivers more money in their hand for them. It helps consumers. It gives them visibility and confidence. And actually, it means that the cost of their experience isn't more than it otherwise would have to be, because what we know is that in the UK, if you don't operate a tipping service charge model, there are a lot of additional costs. And I also think it's the right thing to do. I think that treating people fairly, being open with people, explaining what you do is just the right way to operate. Whether it's to do with where you source your food from and the provenance of your food, it's exactly the same.
And actually, this could be the right time, because everyone is focusing on this now, aren't they? About doing things right as we come out.
It is, and I think it's just part of a bigger conversation that's going on, about how we treat people, where we get our supplies from, our impact on the environment, all of these different things. If you like, the wider thing of social responsibility. Um, I think there's very definitely this has a part to play in that.
It's going to be a challenging time, though, isn't it, for restaurants as we come out?
It is. Most restaurants have a debt hangover. Some of them have still not yet been able to resolve issues with things like landlords and rent arrears and so forth. There may well be some bumps further ahead in the road due to COVID. I mean, we all hope that the government will be able to stick to the roadmap, and the vaccination program means we will not be back in this situation again. But as yet, none of us can be 100% certain of that. And so these are all challenges that people have got to face.
Now, there are people who oppose this as well, aren't there? Who don't believe we should be doing anything. Why do you think that is?
I think there are. I mean, there are some people, as I said earlier, there is a small minority of people who have not played fair by their staff and their customers. And one of the issues at the moment is that the law allows good businesses to act responsibly, but it also allows not so good businesses to perhaps get away with things that maybe they shouldn't. Now, my view has always been that what you don't then do is implement a legal change that penalises the responsible majority, but by shining a light and having more transparency on the bad businesses, that's the way to drive changes in behaviour.
Yeah. Now, you've also had a lot of discussions informally with government officials as well, haven't you, over the last couple of years?
Yeah, and clearly government officials will be getting pressure from all different sides and all different stakeholders. I would hope that government has understood a few key messages from the conversations I've been party of. Firstly, this is a far more complicated issue than you might think. Secondly, if you make a change with good intentions, if you're not careful, there is the risk of unintended consequences to that. Thirdly, the vast majority of businesses work in a way that most reasonable people would think is fair, and we should protect and support those businesses. And in trying to deal with the minority, we need to be careful not to damage the majority. And finally, even before the pandemic, there were financial pressures within hospitality. Margins were shrinking, cost pressures were rising, be those rent costs, be those labour costs, be those food supply costs as well. And if you impose another cost increase on businesses through making changes to the way tipping is dealt with, for some people, that may be the final straw, or it will drive a change in behaviour that maybe actually you wouldn't want to see.
Now, you're very involved in the restaurant sector. How do you see the next 6-12 months, can I ask?
I think clearly people are needing to get back on their feet. I do think that the outlook for the sector is positive. A lot of businesses have been badly damaged over the last year, but most people, those who come out of this, will come out stronger for it in terms of that. There are opportunities there for those businesses that maybe do have cash and are looking to expand. So there are some opportunities. I think that landlords are going to need to have a new way of looking at rents, and that may well help with the opportunities. And I think that there is very clearly a huge pent-up consumer demand for hospitality. And I think one of the few positives that's come out of the last 12 months is perhaps the consumers have realised how much they have missed the experience of being out in hospitality, being with friends and family, socialising, having other people look after them and give them a great experience. I think people have missed that. And I think that people will be very keen to get back to that as soon as they can. And I think those businesses that then deliver on those expectations for consumers stand to do very well from this. And I do think that this is a problem that the sector will get over, rather than a complete and fundamental change in direction and the start of a decline.
I mean, it has been the most fascinating 16 months when we look back. Because I remember when it first started out, everyone was just sitting there going, how the hell are we going to get through this?
Me included, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
People have adapted to come through it. Now the reports coming out saying, look, people learn how to do the takeaway piece and the serving piece. Don't forget to get back to real socializing again.
Absolutely. And I think it's a really interesting conversation going forward. Many restaurants have diversified into takeaway, into finish at home over the last year. And I think the key question is, do we continue with that? Do we feel that we have expanded our customer base and allowed our customers to maybe spend money with us more regularly, or maybe attracting new people who had never been into one of our businesses beforehand? Maybe for those firms who were delivering nationally, it was to people who perhaps didn't live near the site. I think that clearly the risk is making sure that if we do continue with takeaway and finish at home, we don't cannibalize our customer base. As businesses, it is much better to have guests within our restaurants than sending out deliveries to people to consume at home. And actually, I think the experience is a whole lot better with everything else that can be offered by a venue as well. So I think that businesses need to see it as a means to say, you can have an element of our experience more regularly. It's maybe easier for you if you don't live nearby one of our sites, but we very much want to focus on the premium experience, which is when you come to us and we can give you, the whole offering.
I suppose the question is, from your perspective, do you think business models have changed, haven't they? Are they going to carry on changing, do you think, and evolving? Because
I think they will. I mean, I think that the increase that we've seen in delivery over the last year, I don't think is going to go back to, it's not going to fall back to the way it was beforehand. So I think that, we do have to accept that things like, dark kitchens, they are here to stay. And I think for many businesses, they will be an integral part of their business model going forward. And like I say, I think the key thing is embrace that, but just be careful not to diminish or cannibalize your premium offering to people.
Now, one of the interesting debates at this moment in time, and I'll be interested in your thoughts on this, is as we come out, is obviously very exciting. Everyone's getting excited, but actually a lot of MDs and business owners are exhausted. So you've actually got this very strange scenario when actually the people driving the business for the change are actually tired out.
Yeah, just as a time it is. And like many others, I'm looking forward to being able to allow to go on holiday and spend a couple of weeks away from that. I think business leaders and the people who are in key roles within businesses, one of the reasons is they are there because they are committed to their businesses, not just financially but emotionally as well. And I think that business owners, operators, they will do what needs to be done to get their business reopened again and back on a more secure footing and a more stable footing, and then go away and enjoy themselves on that. I think for most people, it will be a case of dredging up those last reserves of adrenaline that we've still got there to get us through the next couple of months, hopefully beyond the 21st of June, to when all restrictions we would hope have gone. And then to be able to say, okay, I can take a breath now. And people do need to take that breath. Nobody can operate at 150% forever. We all need to make some space and time for ourselves. And it will be about finding when the time to do that is, that doesn't damage, the business that we've spent the last 12 months nurturing and protecting and supporting.
No, that's really interesting, isn't it? Now, as we come out, people, it goes back to what we've had. Obviously, had Bob Cotton doing a number of talks, and he was saying his point is we've got to think now about people much better, and that we should be investing 1% of payroll back into development of people. The tipping service piece is, you advocate, it's a very important piece as well. But we've also got to be much better at how we recruit and retain locally as well.
Yeah, I think we do. I think that the days of being able to have access to the wider European labour market, whether you think it's a good thing or a bad thing, I think that certainly for the foreseeable future that's over. On that, I think that does mean a number of things. It means that your recruitment strategy is important, but it's not the most important thing. Your retention strategy is the most important thing. Before you go looking for other people, you should make sure that you are keeping the people that you've got. And a part of that is about investing in them. And that's not necessarily all about pay rises. It's about investing in them in terms of their education, in terms of their training, in terms of their career development, in terms of them feeling that they are getting something back from the business other than just cash for their loyalty, their efforts, and their hard work. So, I mean, I think Bob is right, to call for businesses to say, look, dedicate a specific element that you can say to your team, this is what we're going to do for you. Exactly how we do that will vary by business to business, but I think it is a key message. And I think the other thing is we have to make ourselves more attractive to the rest of the domestic labour market here as well. I think most of the problem is perception, not reality. I think that there is still this image that it's perhaps not a great working environment. You are going to spend all your time being shouted at and working all of the hours under the sun for a complete pittance. That's not the case, but it's a perception that's still out there. I think in this country, hospitality as a career has never been valued in the same way as it's been valued in some other countries. And I think we need to do more on that. And we need to do more, people have spoken quite rightly about the closure of catering colleges, so forth. I think that we need to get to people even earlier than that. We need to be making sure that teachers and careers advisors, they buy into the concept that hospitality is a great place to work. It's a really dynamic industry. You can join with very little in the way of qualification on that. And if you've got commitment, if you've got drive, if you've got common sense, you can grow and you can develop probably faster than you can in many other sectors and many other industries. And I think hospitality is, it is a real meritocracy. And I think that that's a message that perhaps isn't put out there often enough to young people who may see working in a bar or working in a restaurant as a stopgap to earn a bit of cash while they go to college or while they go to university. But I think we need to be doing more to say it's a long-term career for you. And as a business, we invest in your growth and your development to give you the chance to take those steps forward in your career wherever you want to. Whether you see it as in food, back of house, whether you see it as service, front of house, whether you see it as administration, office, numbers, whether you see it as people management, all of those different types of roles, whether you see it as marketing, social media, all of these different career paths, hospitality can offer you.
It's interesting. But a lot of this is about communication, because I'm going to bring it back to tipping as well. Because I always remember you used to tell a story that you'd go into restaurants and actually that even the restaurants that you work with, that sometimes the staff don't know the rules and don't know where it goes. It is partly
sometimes they don't. And I think, I do think, unfortunately, sometimes there is a little bit of willful ignorance. I've always been a very strong advocate that in any hospitality business, it's a team game and everybody plays a part in that. So from the moment that I ring up to make a reservation, that's when my experience starts. From when I arrive and the person on reception greets me, finds me booking, doesn't keep me standing around for ages, shows me to my table, from the bartender, the server, the chef, the kitchen porter, the supervisor, the manager, all of those people. And I think that people have to understand it is a team game. Everyone is dependent on everyone else. Sometimes people won't take that view. Sometimes people will take the view of, I deserve that, that should be mine. And I think, unfortunately, that does happen sometimes, in that the message that's put out to consumers is not as accurate as it could otherwise be. Which is why I always say to businesses, if you put the message out yourself, then that deals with that as well. We have to inform customers. It's not educate, because educate almost suggests that we think people are stupid. It's not. It's informing. Some people are not interested. That's fine. That's okay. Some people take a view, we don't like this and we don't believe in that. And that's okay too. Most people will simply want to have a limited amount of information that gives them comfort and reassurance. And I think it is beholden on businesses to put that information out there, not just relying on our staff.
I think that's really right. Peter, can I say thank you for your time today? That's been fantastic.
No, thank you, Chris. Absolutely.